Shut up, be quiet. This is a classroom. We, in a civilized society, are quiet in our classrooms. This is the Unregistered podcast, and I'm Thaddeus Russell. This is a show about ideas, people, and behaviors that are considered inappropriate, out of bounds, or beyond the pale. The things you're not supposed to talk about if you're a school teacher, a college professor, a businessman, a politician, a parent, a neighbor, or even a podcast host. These are the things you're not supposed to say or even think if you're a good liberal, a good conservative, or a good citizen. I need you to guess what these are, these numbers, these things.
Is that your, SAT score or something?
1090?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Good. Who else?
Pretty sure all of those are your grades. I guess what you were graded on. 2.4 would be your GPA.
This is my GPA in high school.
Yeah.
I graduated from Berkeley High School, not far from here, right? California Public High School, just like this one. 2.4, C average. B plus, my highest grade in any class in high school. This was my SAT, yes. Can anyone guess what this is? My highest grade in
history.
In any history class in high school was a D. That was the highest grade I ever got in a history class. So, I hated it. I hated it so much. K all the way through 12. You guys are juniors? Yeah, I was in deep hatred by junior year. I couldn't wait to get out. It was my ninth grade. No, it was my eighth grade. It was my eighth grade algebra class. The windows in that class were in the back of the room. And so I would sit in the back of the class and the teacher would be up here. The windows are back there. And he'd be writing a long equation. It was algebra, right? Long equations, which was great for me. He'd be in the middle of long equations during that time. Almost every day I would just roll out that window and walk home. Hence the 2.4 GPA. Yeah, hated it. Charlie Brown, those old cartoons, Christmas, Charlie Brown stuff. That's what school was like all the time. It was not only boring and I hated it, it didn't make any sense to me. Like when adults like him spoke, they may as well have been speaking Albanian. I just didn't understand it. Do you know why? No, I'm asking you, do you know why? I don't know why. So D was the highest grade I ever got in a history class. And a 2.4 is my GPA. So I have a PhD in history from Columbia University. I've been a professor of history for 25 years. I've taught at 5 different universities. I have 3 books. How could that be? Here's the question I have for you. Why did you come here today? Anybody?
To learn.
To learn what?
To learn about history.
From me?
Yeah.
From anyone who's here?
From the teacher.
Have you learned history so far?
Yeah.
Not from me. I haven't taught you a damn thing about history. From Mr. Hodgins?
Yes.
Okay. Have you learned from in other classes? I mean, I'm asking.
Yeah.
Why are you thinking? It should be obvious if you've learned something. You've been here for 3 years. It's a long time of learning. You should have done something. Can you name one thing you've learned?
Learned about algebra.
Learned about algebra. You mean the existence of it? Like that there is algebra?
Learned how to do algebra.
You know how to do it? Like what level?
All the way up to transitioning to calculus.
Wow. Okay, that's pretty good. I learned some of that too. I'm not saying you're not going to get anything out of school. I think there's some things that are useful. I wish I had taken wood shop. That's my main regret. Because my son comes home with these really cool cutting boards. And I'm like, oh, you actually learned something today. That's useful in the real world. I could do that, but I never took it. Or auto mechanics. Do you have a mechanic shop here? I take it. Go. Immediate. Seriously, do that. I wish I had taken that. Those are great classes. History, I learned 0. English, I learned 0. Math, I learned just enough to pass. Why did you get out of bed this morning? Why do you come here? To learn. Is that it for everyone? Everyone's like her? What's your name?
Allie.
Allie? Is everyone like Allie and that's why you came here to learn? There's no wrong answer, right? This is your own thing, right? I'm not going to make fun of you. Except for Allie. I'll make fun of you a little bit.
It's okay. I come here to find a potential job career.
Find a potential job career. To learn what jobs there are for you. Is that true for anyone else? Is this a good place to come to find out what jobs there are?
We'll find out what you're interested in.
I think it's one of the worst places, don't you? I mean, I don't know. Do they talk about jobs here? I don't think Allie's wrong, though. I think she's right in a really deep and important way. Do you come here for a job? Did you get up at 6 a.m.? That was fun, right? Don't you love getting up at 6 every morning, 5 days a week, 9 months of the year? I wish it would just go all year long, and I wish it would be my life forever. When I retire, I'm just going to do that. I'm going to get up at 6 and go to a classroom and sit there, bored out of my mind, until 3 o'clock when I can finally roll out the window and go home. Allie learns things. I learned a few things, I will admit. Why? Why do you come here?
I come here to better myself.
Better yourself? Oh, besides learning, there's other things you can do to better yourself?
Sure.
Like what?
Like you can learn how to, well, school, I guess, is where you learn how to socialize with other people. So.
Is that really true? Is that where you learned how to socialize? You couldn't talk to people before this? Or?
Well, not people my age, I don't assume.
Really? Is that true? Do you guys think you're better able to like deal with your peers because of school? It's an honest question. I want to know. Yes. Could you learn to deal with peers outside of school? Do you need school for that? Okay, so we eliminated another reason for the existence of this place. Learning. Allie, could you learn algebra outside of this school?
Well, I would need a teacher to learn, so this is
Have you ever heard of Khan Academy? Everyone apparently has heard of Khan Academy. Khan Academy, I have never used it, so I don't know. I've just heard from about 5,000 people that it's awesome at teaching algebra. Has anyone used it? Is it good at teaching algebra at least, if not awesome? Might it be at least as good as even the math teachers in this school, possibly? Maybe. We won't name her. I won't even identify her, but there is a female in the front row who is nodding her head. Principal, what's his name? Her name? Yeah. Allie, you can learn algebra very easily, probably better outside this school. Is that a radical, like, bad thing to say? Is that crazy now? It's totally true, right? You'd probably learn it better doing Khan Academy more efficiently, is what I've heard. I've never done it. I've just heard this from everybody. Is that true, guys? So why did you come here again? Right? When you look at certain things like this, like the things you do every single day without thinking about it, when you stop and ask yourself, why am I doing this weird thing in this part of the universe right now? It becomes very absurd very quickly, doesn't it? Why do you get... It's 180 days a year. You've been doing this for 11 years straight. Do the math. That's a lot of days coming to places like this. Why? You still haven't given me one single good reason.
Because it's the only thing we know how to do.
Get her out of here. Someone, security, is there security in the school? We have police. So I saw a sheriff outside. Because it's the only, say it again?
The only thing we know how to do.
It's the only thing okay, so you're very bleak. I don't know. You're depressing me. Is that true? Does everyone, what's your name?
Kelsey.
Kelsey? Does everyone agree with Kelsey's very dark view of the world? Your world? Not the world. Your world. Is it that bad around here? That's right. Am I right? Kelsey's a little dark on this one. She's a little depressing, a little sad, cynical. You know what I mean? Like, it's the only thing you know how to do. Good Lord.
Well, it's like the only thing we're used to doing. Like, we're used to waking up every day and going to school.
You know she nailed you. You know it. Now you're able to pretend, oh, Kelsey, she's too mean. That's ridiculous. She totally nailed you. That's why you do this. The alarm's gone off at 6 a.m. and you've thought, should I go to school today? Let me ponder my future. Let me guess. Should I stay in bed for another hour, or should I push my naked body out of these? No, you just do it, right? Over and over and over, 180 times a year since you were 5. That's weird. And you can't even give me a reason for why, except it's the only thing you know what to do. I mean, we went over some things, but we covered that you can cover those outside this damn school. Why are we here? Why have we been telling you that this is what you should do? We, the grown-ups, the teachers, the parents, the culture, the society, the presidents, the senators, they tell you to go to school too, like literally, right? Kamala Harris, she locked people up in San Francisco for not going to school. That was her claim to fame as the district attorney in San Francisco, was putting parents in prison if they didn't send their kids to school. That is the other answer for why you're here. You're not even aware of this, are you? Do you know what the law is regarding this? You have to be here. Or a school that the state deems to be appropriate as a school. It's called universal, here's the word, compulsory education. That's our system. Universal, everyone. Compulsory, what does that mean? Not voluntary. You have no choice. What happens if you play hooky and your parents know about it and let you? You're walking around the mall right now instead of in this classroom. Tuesday morning, you're in the mall. What's going to happen eventually? You're walking around the mall right now on a Tuesday morning. What's eventually going to happen? Unless you look like you're 30, what's going to happen? Do you see what I'm saying here? What's going to happen, people? You don't even know. You're such good kids. You're so well trained. You've never played hooky? You've never gone to the mall during class time? God, you guys, come on. We can do better than this.
I mean, I would assume someone's going to stop you and ask you what you're doing there.
What is the cop's responsibility, the police officer's responsibility if he sees you at the mall? His obligation, his job, if he sees a teenager at the mall during school hours. You don't know this? What are you? You have a legal status at that moment when you leave this campus during school hours. Do you know what you are? You have a legal status. Do you know what it is? What's an immigrant who crosses the border without papers? An undocumented or illegal alien. You are not an illegal alien, but you are almost as bad. You know what? There's a word for you when you do this. You're a truant. Truancy is a crime. We don't put children in prison for truancy unless they keep being truants. And then we put them in a place that's not called prison. It's called something else. The kids who are truants a lot, we put them in a place called juvenile detention. You may have heard of it. It's a prison for people your age. So it's illegal for you not to be here. Or in a school that the state deems okay, like your homeschooling has to be okayed by the state, or your private school has to be okayed by the state. But you have to be in a school, according to the state. It's compulsory. But is that the reason you get up in the morning? Is that the reason your parents send you here? Do they think that, oh no, if I don't send Kelsey to school, we're going to go to prison? Probably not, right? They may not even be. Did you know about that law? Raise your hand if you knew that was the law. You know that it's the law. Okay, not all of you. I wasn't even totally clear on it myself, and I was playing hooky. I don't think that's the real reason you get up and come here, to keep your parents out of the clink. San Quentin. You don't want to send your parents to the San Quentin, right? Kamala Harris will put them there if you keep playing hooky. No, I don't think so. Why do you get up? It's the only thing you know. Why have we told you this is what you should do? Why does society insist that you come to this room and sit like this in these chairs, silently staring face forward at a man talking at you? This is a very strange thing to be doing, isn't it? This is the only time in your life you're going to do anything like it, isn't it? Please don't tell me you go home and do this at home. That would be really creepy to me and very sad. If you ever replicate this in the rest of your life, I will be very sad. Why? You don't, do you? You never do this anywhere else, do you? Hell no. You're talking, laughing, yelling, watching TV, playing video games, on YouTube, whatever it is. I have a 17-year-old son. I know what you people do, right? That's what you do. You don't sit in desks silently, staring forward, listening to a boring old man talk at you. Why is it so important for society to make you do this?
Because most of us wouldn't have the drive to do it ourselves.
Most of you wouldn't have the drive to do it yourselves. Is that true? Thank you. I hope not. Who could have the drive to do this 180 days a year for 13 years by themselves? No one. Who would do this by themselves with no compulsion from the government for 13 years? No human being would do. So why do we put so much into this? We have our cops arrest children and mothers and fathers, and we build these places, and we staff them, and we pay out the nose for them. These things are expensive to make sure you guys are doing this every damn day for 13 years. Why is it so important to us as a society?
To better our society.
You keep saying that, like, specify. What does that mean?
Because to run the society that we run today, we need educated people to run the society, because it's not like you can just go out and plow in a field anymore. That's not what society needs these days. Yeah, you gotta
type at a computer instead, right? And that takes learning, education, expertise. Seriously.
To type what you're typing?
Well, to work on computers, to work on the internet. Everybody works on the internet now, right? You got to learn that. That takes expertise. You got to learn the internet, right? I'm making your argument for you, right? That's why we need school.
To learn on the internet specifically?
I don't know. You're saying that, right? To be good workers.
Well, I'm sure that's an aspect of it, but I think it goes broader than just learning on the internet.
Totally. Have you guys ever been around teenagers? What are they like? They're wild animals, teenagers. Have you ever been around teenage boys? Anyone in this classroom, has anyone been around teenage boys at all, ever? You guys ever seen one of these animals in outside of captivity? What do they tend to do? They're super productive and disciplined and orderly people, aren't they? Right after school, all these guys right here, they're going to go straight home and do math homework. My son right now is thinking about Black Ops while he's sitting in the class. Do you ever do that in school? You've thought about other things during class? No way. No way. Seriously? Okay, that brings us to a subject. Has anyone heard of Sigmund Freud? Tell us about Sigmund Freud. Like, what's he known for? Like, who is he?
He's a psychologist who believed in weird theories.
A psychologist who believed in weird theories. That is completely correct. I love that, actually, because how did he prove his theories? He looked through a microscope into the human brain. You didn't know about that? Freud's microscope. He looked inside the human brain. He could see, like, inside of you that you have a daddy issue. No, seriously. No, he didn't have a microscope or anything else. He made that shit up. I'm agreeing with you. They were theories and only that. They came out of his mind. He would have patients, and they would come in and tell him stuff, and then from that, he'd be like, all women have daddy issues and want a penis. All women in all the world, not just my patient who I just saw. Yeah. He's the father of what we call psychoanalysis. So if anyone ever says to you, you have daddy issues or mommy issues, right? Family issues, it probably comes from Freud somewhere. He also wrote a book that I really like, that I think has a really important argument in it that I think explains why you got up in the morning today. The book was written in the 1920s by Sigmund Freud. It was called Civilization and Its Discontents. Civilization and Its Discontents. Okay. In that book, he argues that civilization requires this thing called repression. Do you know what repression is? What is repression?
It's where you repress your urges in order to do the right thing, that according to the law.
It's where you repress your urges to do the right thing according to the law. That is an awesome description of repression. Freud said we can't have civilization unless we repress our urges. The urges he called the id, the animal stuff. What do animals do all day long? There's two things I think three things maybe they only do. What do animals do?
They only eat and sleep.
Eat, sleep, and?
Have sex.
Have sex, thank you. And run from predators, I think. That's about it, right? Fight. They fight or fly, right? There's a lot of fighting. You ever seen nature shows? Super violent. Don't recommend it. Very disturbing, especially the lion stuff. But very violent, right? And a lot of sex. And there's no real work going on. They're not building anything. Animals, have they built anything? Are there any animal roads or bridges or towns or buildings or cars? No, they don't build a thing. Why? Why? Because animals are stupid. We're smart, right? So to build stuff, we have to repress our animal urges to fight and to have sex. Do we have urges? Do you have urges to fight and have sex? You don't have to say anything. Just think. Has that ever crossed your little minds, ever once in your lives? 17 years, ever once, twice, 3 times you've thought about sex or hurting someone else? Every day, all the time, right? You're thinking about one or the other. Okay. That's what Freud said. He said that people are constantly wanting to do one or the other. When I'm teaching college classes, I call it the F or F idea. You either want to fight or all the time. Okay, so that's the id. He called it the id. Needs to be repressed to have civilization, to build roads, to build bridges, to have schools, to have armies, police, prisons, corporations, smartphones, all of it, right? Does that make sense? That's why you got up this morning, right? To build civilization. If you didn't get up this morning, civilization dies. That's a heavy responsibility, right? But that's why you're here. That's why we put all these resources into getting you here. When you were 4 years old, did you sit like this? Were you guys like this? I don't know you very well, but were you like this in terms of personality? Were you very, very quiet? You're very orderly, very good people. Were you like this when you were 4 and 3 and 2? Before kindergarten, like before you were in school? If you had come into a room like this when you were 4, what would you have done when you saw the desks? These desks that you're sitting at, what would you have done with them? Would you have sat at them? Would you have crawled under them, stood on top of them, turned them over, made the whole thing into the most badass fort ever? Anything but do what you guys are doing right now? You're very much not like that. Something really serious happened to you between age 5 and age 17.
I started learning like right and wrong and like began being punished for like wrong behaviors that your parents saw or your teachers or whatever.
You started getting punished by authority figures for the first time, by teachers for the first time. Right and wrong, people other than your parents for the first time, totally. What's like, imagine being a kindergarten teacher. Just put yourself in their position, whether you hate them or love them, okay? You're a kindergarten teacher. That's your job for whatever reason, okay? And it's your first day. It's the first day of the school year. You've got 35-year-olds coming in this room, right? Okay, terrifying, right? What is the first thing you need to do with them? They're 5. They've never been in a classroom before, right? This is the first day of their school life. What, as their teacher, must you do first, do you think? What would you do? You're smart. Figure it out. Imagine being thrust in that position. What's the very first thing you would do with 35-year-olds?
It's like try to quiet them down.
So they're going to be all yelling and noisy, right? And chaotic. Quiet them down. Shh. See, we're quiet in classrooms. See, you guys just did the bad thing. And you knew it because you were like, so shut up, be quiet. This is a classroom. We, in a civilized society, are quiet in our classrooms. Yes, that's number one. What's the second thing you're going to need them to do? You ever been around 5-year-olds for a long time, or even a little bit? 30 of them, and they're all under your charge? Oh my God. Quiet, be quiet. Awesome. What's the second thing I would do?
Make them stay still.
Make them stay still, and where are they going to stay still? At the desk. Because if you take this and show it to an average 5-year-old or 4-year-old, what are they going to think it is? What are they going to do with it? They're not going to work at it. They're going to make it into a toy, or they're going to ignore it altogether because it's boring. Am I right? So we have to say to them, this is a desk. It's not a spaceship, and it's not a fort. It's not a dollhouse. It's a desk for work. So that's what happened to you. That's why you're sitting like this in this very strange way that you never do in the rest of your lives. Do you guys know about horses, wild horses, and how wild horses are made into domestic horses, domestic animals? Do you know what happens? The process? What's the process of that called? Anyone know?
It's called breaking the horse.
Breaking horses. So what wild horses, you can go to Nevada, and there's actually whole packs of wild Mustangs that run around the desert in Nevada. It's beautiful. It's amazing, right? Those are wild horses. To make them the horses that you ride on, what happens? What do they do to make that happen? You go grab the Mustang out of the desert in Nevada, and then what do you do with it?
Put it in a pen.
You put it in a pen, an enclosed space with fencing, a small enclosed space. What was their space before then, their living space? It was the entire Mojave Desert, basically, right? And now it's this little space the size of this room often, right? Any horse people around? Horse pens or where you break the horses are about this size, I think. And what direction do they go in the horse pen? One direction, right? A wild horse goes in which direction? Any direction. A tame horse goes in one direction. That's what happened in kindergarten to you. I'm submitting to you that you were broken like horses when you were 5. That's how I think of it. That's the only way I can explain why you do what you do every day. Get up in the middle of the night, basically. 5 or 6 a.m. is the middle of the night for normal people, right? And you go to this place where you're not exactly sure what you're getting out of it. Every day, 180 days a year. I think, as Kelsey, the dark person, said a long time ago, I think since then, that's the only thing you've been told. Therefore, it's the only thing you've known. Is that right? Am I being conspiracy theorist and paranoid and weird? Seriously, fight back. Come on.
Where's the evidence?
Where's the evidence? I'm staring at it, is my point. And no one disagreed with me when I said, do you do this any other time in your life? There was a bunch of people were like, hell no, I never am like this in the rest of my life. Maybe if you go to church on Sunday is the only other time I can think of. Correct? Yeah. So that's why I need to know how 17-year-old smart children would do this. It's wild. I think Freud's right. So let's break it down a little bit, though, okay? So I'm going to introduce you to another fairly important thinker in the history of Western civilization. Here's another non-American who's actually really important, I think, for understanding American history. His name's Socrates. You've heard of him? Socrates looked like a homeless person. He had long hair, long beard. He wore a disheveled, dirty robe and sandals, and he walked around under an olive tree talking to people all day. He's the most important thinker in the history of Western civilization. He influences everything we think and do. He is also the reason you got up this morning. Why? Because Socrates had this idea that has been central. It's rarely ever stated. We just assume it. We don't even think about it. It's inside of us. Philosophers call it the mind-body duality or the mind-body binary, and most people who study this agree that it has been central in Western thinking since 400 BC when Socrates was running around under the olive tree. About 2,500 years that it's been built on these ideas. And this is one of the central ones. He said, the human soul is made of 2 basic parts, the mind and the body. So you guys can probably relate to this. Where is your mind? Where is your body? Right. So you pointed up when I asked you where your mind was and down when I asked you where your body was. He thought the same thing. He thought the mind was not only inside of here, he also thought it was, and this is the crucial thing, better than the body and needed to conquer the body or fight the body, stop the body from doing what the body wants to do all the time. What does the body want to do all the time? Name some things. What does your body want to do?
It wants to be like an animal, I guess.
Yeah, like what?
So it wants to sleep.
Sleep, awesome, at 6 a.m. instead of going to school. What else does your body want to do? Anyone else? Eat. Body, what else? It's amazing how deep the repression goes that sex doesn't even come up. Yet you think about it all the time. You think about it all the time. We've already established that, yet you won't speak it. That, guys, is repression. Freud talked about it. He called it the Great Victorian Silence. He was writing during the Victorian era, turn of the 20th century, and he noticed that no one in Austria or England or the United States ever spoke about sex at all. He thought it was the strangest thing because he knew his patients thought about sex all the time. But then when he would go out into public, he would never hear the word uttered, right? Just like you guys, especially in spaces like this. In online chat areas, I'm sure you have mentioned sex a few times. While playing video games with your boys across the planet, I'm sure you might have mentioned, look at these guys, they're all like getting nervous, right? Of course you do. You may have heard of this thing called Pornhub. Jesus Christ, of course you know it's sex. You think about it all the time, but you won't even mention it when asked. That's repression. That's social repression. That's civilization telling you not to speak about it, right? So sex is the biggest one down here. It's not the only one, but it's definitely the biggest. Those things are bad. What would your parents be most happy about you doing with your life after high school? Now it's easy to answer. What do they most want you to do? Do they most want you to take advantage of California's new very liberal cannabis laws and smoke a lot of weed? Because you can when you're 18, really soon. So that's option A. Option B is math. I need to say something. I love you. What's your name?
Josh.
Josh. Yeah, I knew it was Josh. I could just tell. I always love my Joshes. No, that was exactly. Yeah. Don't they? Kinda. Even my mom, who hated math and was just as bad at it as I was and got even worse grades, if I had been an engineer, she'd have loved it. Right? Scientist of any kind. Using math, great. What's Thad doing? Oh, he's writing books about like drunks and prostitutes, and he gives talks at high schools for no money, and he just wanders around the country having a podcast. But that's not good. If she said, oh, he's an engineer for Hewlett Packard, it'd be like, great, awesome, every day. She could have that for the rest of her life, and that's what she most wants. Correct? If any of you went to MIT, would your parents be happy? That's it, right? That's it. That's the one. You've made it. You're good forever. If you went into the porn industry, it's funny. Van Nuys, California is right down the road, okay? That is the center of the porn industry. There are thousands and thousands and thousands of jobs right there that you could get. How many jobs do you think there are in pornography right now? Do your parents want you to have a job and make money? If the objective is to have a good paying job, porn is totally the way to go. Right now, more than engineering. Barrier to entry, almost nothing. You need to be able to learn how to use a camera if you're behind them. I just listened to an amazing podcast by a guy named John Ronson, who's a very famous journalist. I think it was produced by NPR, so this is not weirdos like me. This is real journalists, okay? He did a whole 6-part series on the porn industry. You know what I found out? Many things, but one of them was that the Pornhub headquarters is in Montreal, Quebec, okay? And it is a skyscraper. A skyscraper. They own the whole thing. On every floor, there are hundreds of people working only for Pornhub. Each floor is its own division of Pornhub. It's so massive that 95% of the people who work for Pornhub never see porn because it's such a huge entity that they have whole divisions just for like algorithms and SEOs and you name it. It's massive. That's just one company. Thousands and thousands of people in Montreal are employed by one porn company. If you just go down the I-5 5 hours, there's thousands more jobs for you that don't require a degree. You don't have to have sex in front of camera. I'm talking about it's a massive business industry, right? You don't know this because it's not been mentioned to you. The fastest growing industry you would think would have been mentioned to you. The fastest growing industry in all of North America is pornography by far. If you want to enter an industry in which you'll make a lot of money and do really well, it's porn, definitely. But no one will tell you that, except me. Do you guys get my point here? That is some serious repression. Why don't your parents want you to go into that industry? It's where the money is. You will wear a business suit and have a 6-figure salary and drive a BMW, and no one will even know what you do. But it's not even told to you. You don't need a degree for this. You don't need to go to MIT. You don't even need to go to Cal. You don't even need to go to Hayward State. What's the local community college here? You don't need that either. But no one mentions it to you. Why? Because Sigmund Freud and Socrates said that for civilization to exist, we must repress the sexual urges. So if we encourage our children to be anywhere near sex or sexuality, our civilization will fall apart. It's been baked in to the way we think since 400 BC. Socrates was 400 BC. That was 2,500 years ago. He came up with this idea, and ever since, Americans and Europeans have just internalized it. They don't think about it. People don't walk around talking about the mind-body duality, and I got to get up because of the mind-body. It's just inside of us, right? Sex, sleep, eating, dressing up like a peacock, animal, ostentatious, bad, body, right? To celebrate the self is individualistic, and it's not communal. It doesn't produce anything. Also bad, right? Okay, so Socrates says that's the bad animalistic stuff. To have any society, we need to repress it. What do we repress those urges with? The urge to stay in bed at 6 a.m. is repressed, is combated, is ultimately defeated this morning for you guys by what? What got you out of bed? Your body was sticking you to that bed, and something magically got you out. Anybody?
The government.
The government. Did dudes in like uniforms and guns come to you and hold a gun to your head and say, get up and go to school right now, or we're taking you to prison?
No, but the laws they made did.
The laws they made did, yes. So we don't even know that. Here's the thing. They don't even need those laws. You guys came here without even barely knowing about those laws. I don't think that's why you're here. I don't think that's why you got up. I think that civilization made you get up. Freud, not Socrates, but Freud, writing in the 1920s, said, civilization does this thing with us. It creates in our minds this thing that he called the superego. That's the voice in you telling you that you suck, telling you that you're lazy, telling you that you like sex too much, telling you that you haven't worked enough, telling you that you're not successful enough, productive enough. That voice, you ever have that voice in you? So Freud's theory, he could be wrong, is that civilization is talking to you when you are saying those things to yourself. Because civilization wants you to work, needs you to work. If you don't work, we don't have roads and bridges and buildings and schools, right? Superego telling you to go to school and get up was placed inside of you. Freud calls it a sentry in the fort of civilization. So if you got up right now, walked out of class right now, what are the things that would happen to you?
You could get, well, if you keep doing it, you could get sent to juvie, I guess.
So the cops could pick you up, you get sent to juvie, get sent to the principal's office, sure. So that's like institutional, legal, formal violence against your body, right? They're actually seizing you and placing you somewhere you don't want to be. Like school, except now it's called juvenile detention center. Know what I'm saying? But I don't think that's really what's keeping you here. No one's going to juvenile detention in this classroom anytime soon, I don't think. You're AP history students. The mind is where rationality is, discipline is, work is, order is, you sitting at your desk is, right? Body is the animal. Okay, so which groups in this society have been associated with, let's start with the mind, historically. I'm not saying this is true. I'm saying who has been associated with the mind culturally, right? Our culture has said certain groups belong here and certain groups belong there. There's a bunch, right? Name one that's been associated with the mind.
Politicians.
Yes. Someone said that in the first class. Very good. But no one has said that in my college classes, which I've been teaching, as I said, for more than 20 years. So you guys, very good. Yeah. Have you noticed, with one fairly big exception, all American politicians have been really, really uptight, at least publicly, in the way that they present themselves? What do they wear? Like 100% of the time. Business suits. What color? Black or maybe navy. That's it. That's it. Think about that. Black or navy business suits that all look exactly the same. Right? They are the paragons of discipline. You know who's the greatest paragon of discipline in American history was? Barack Obama. Wasn't he? What do you know about his and Michelle's sex life? How much do you know? How much do we know? Nothing. They were completely, totally silent about it. Remember what Freud said about silence and sex? Barack used to smoke cigarettes. He stopped during his presidency. How many beers did Barack Obama drink in his 8 years in office? I am aware of exactly one, and it was a light beer. He had a summit with a cop and a professor once early on, and they had beers on the White House lawn, and they had light beers. And he had one beer, and that was it. Barack Obama smoked weed back in college and then stopped because he became a good American. So politicians, yeah, totally. Lawmakers associated with the body. The mind. Who else has been associated with the mind? What other social groups? You can think gender, ethnicity, race, sexuality, whatever you want.
Rich people?
Yeah, rich people are rational, with one notable exception. Because you have to be rational to make a lot of money, don't you? I mean, that's just a fact. Okay, let's do the more obvious ones that, again, you guys are skirting around, I think because it's too controversial to say, but no one doubts at all that historically African Americans have been associated by this culture with the body, okay? Associated with, I'm not making any claims about what's true, but this is indisputable, right? That African Americans, since before slavery ended, have been associated by American culture with the body. They're the good dancers, they're the good entertainers, they're the ones who like sex a lot, they're not so great at working, right? Classic. That's the stereotype of black people, right? Who else?
Mexicans, Latin Americans.
So Mexican immigrants, it's tricky. That's a little complicated, right? And we're just talking about what is said about them. What is said about Mexican immigrants now? What's the problem according to Trump and his people?
They're taking up too many lower jobs.
Taking away too many jobs. What else?
They're bringing in like drugs and crime.
His main thing is crime. Yeah, drugs and crime. Violence. Violence is associated with
the body.
The body. Right. The id. What else do they bring in that we don't like as Americans?
Other culture.
Yeah. So, what is the proper American family structure? What's the ideal American family look like?
Usually a mom and a dad.
Not usually, by definition, it's mom, dad, children. That's it. That's what the nuclear family means, right? So that's what we do in this country and have always done since the early 19th century. That if you don't have a nuclear family, you're kind of screwed. Like this is said a lot about black kids in particular, right? Because a lot of black kids don't have nuclear families. So we just assume that they're going to have terrible lives because of that. Because we know in our hearts that if you're not a nuclear family, you're probably going to be a criminal or very sad. What's the evidence for that? The evidence for that is that America is very successful and powerful and rich, and we've had a nuclear family model in this country for a couple hundred years. That's it. In social science, that's called what? That's just a correlation, right? It could just be a coincidence. There's no necessarily a causation there. You may have noticed, if you are from an immigrant family or have been around immigrant families, usually, not always, but usually, who comes? Is it just the little nuclear family, mom and dad and 2 kids and a dog and a picket fence? No, they're sensible people. They know that it's really hard to raise children. So they bring as much help as they can. They bring mom and dad and uncles and aunts and grandma and grandpa and cousins and friends, and everybody raises the children. If you know anything about immigrant groups now, that is common. It's not everybody, but it is common. It's more common than the nuclear family, which is putting mom and dad and the kids on an island and telling them to take care. You go up there and take care of yourselves. No one's going to help you. Good luck. You know how hard that is? Nowadays, to have to make enough money to raise children all by yourself, my God, dude, I'm telling you, it's wiped me out. But that's what that's what's demanded. Immigrants don't do that. They bring the extended family. No good. It's for lazy people. We work hard. The nuclear family makes you work hard, trust me. To make that much money and be a full-time parent, oh my God, that's work. I would so much rather be in an extended family. I wish I had been as a parent. Wish to hell I'd been a Mexican in that way. Oh yeah. It sucks being up there in that castle by yourself with all that responsibility. Horrible. What other groups have been associated with the body in this country? Gays and lesbians, homosexuals, right, have been very much associated with the body. Yep. Why?
Because they aren't like everybody else, right? You can't have like a perfectly nuclear family without a mom and a dad, right? And if they're both the same gender, then it's different.
Right. So they cannot have the good nuclear family. What else cannot they do? Can they not do?
Make kids.
They can't make kids of their own, right? They can imitate it pretty damn well, though, which they've been doing lately since they've been busy getting married and having children, right? But think about your status as a homosexual. There is something very fundamental about the difference there between them and heterosexuals. When heterosexuals have sex, there's a chance, and the purpose of it, of course, is to have children. They can't ever have children with sex, with their version of sex. Homosexuality is, by definition, always and only recreational. Homosexuals only have sex for fun, of course, right? By definition. So they've, yes, for that and many other reasons, they've been associated with the body. They're irrational. Why shouldn't women be president? Because you know women shouldn't be president, right? Why shouldn't they be president?
A lot of people say that their hormones will make them irrational.
Y'all are too emotional because your chemicals make you that way, especially at certain times of the month. But really all the time, women are just more emotional than men. I'm sorry, you're just built this way. You really shouldn't necessarily even be in a classroom because you should be home baking cookies, actually, or raising children, whatever you all do to raise the children. Yes, women have been largely associated with the body, right, for all kinds of reasons. Young children, gays, blacks, women, it's a lot of people. Immigrants. You guys have studied like the earlier immigrants, right? We don't want to pick on the Mexicans too much. The Jews and the Italians and the Irish, my people, Paul's people. What about, you guys read about them? Mr. Hodgins, I'm sure, told you about them. Those were the really bad people. What did the Irish and the Italians and the Jews do when they first got here back in the 19th century? The first ones? Oh my God. My people. Oh my God. What did they do? They drank all day long. They drank while they were working. They didn't drink a light beer. They drank whiskey all day long while they were working, digging canals. They dug canals. The Irish, they dug the canals that connected New York City, Philadelphia, and Boston to the Great Lakes over here. They dug trenches from there all the way to there. Hundreds of miles. They dug trenches. It was the worst work ever. And they demanded that they be paid in whiskey and money. They drank all day long. They fornicated during the day. They had sex with black people. They lived with black people. The Irish were just like, they were great dancers. They were the worst people ever. They invented the tap dancing. That was them. The jig, which is the basis of a lot of hip-hop dance now, was actually Irish invention with blacks, co-invented all that stuff. Horrible people. The Italians, a little while later, right? What did they do when they got here? Like, what were the Italians, Sicilians especially, up to like in the 1920s in the United States when they got here, those immigrants? Those filthy, disgusting, uneducated, savage Italians. What did they do?
They were like part of organized crime and stuff?
You heard of the mafia? That's how bad they were. During the 1920s, what did the Sicilian mafia do in the United States? What were they very busy doing in the 1920s? They were making, distributing, and selling alcohol, which was illegal. Drinking. Oh my God, these people. Oh, the Jews. Okay, right. He's part Italian, I'm part Jewish and Irish, so we got it all covered here. The Jews had their own mafia at the same time in the 1910s and 20s. Huge mafia in Detroit, New York. Murder Inc. That was the name of the Jewish mafia in New York. That's how badass they were. Jews. Murder. That was the name of their organization, Murder Inc. Mess with us, guess what happens to you? They were competing with the Italian mafia in selling booze during Prohibition. My people, the Irish and the Jews, were a bunch of fucking murderers and rapists and hooligans. Criminals. Hell yeah. The first generation, the immigrants, are always like that. They always do something wrong. The Mexicans aren't exactly like that. In some ways they are, but they're mostly just working their asses off. But they don't do it all quite right. Every immigrant group like misses a couple things. You don't have a nuclear family. You're not working hard enough. You're a little too criminal, a little violent, whatever. You don't follow our laws, right? Then we whoop their asses. How do we do that? What has been the big fight in California, especially in recent years, around immigration and education? What's been the big issue around that? About what should be taught in the schools?
Like diversity and like social studies and that type of stuff?
Yeah, I was thinking on a more basic level, bilingual education, right? Do we teach Spanish in the schools? Do we allow people to speak Spanish in this culture? Do we allow them to be in this country and not speak English, right? So there was a movement for bilingual education, which would have allowed Spanish-speaking children to just speak Spanish in school, right? Crushed, destroyed, because people said, well, they'll never assimilate. They'll never become a part of American culture. True. So I say to that, yeah, you have to lose some things to gain other things, right? Citizenship in America is really good shit, right? You get a lot for it. What do you get for it?
Like Social Security?
You get, oh, you mean like pension? That Social Security? That kind of, yeah. So you get money at the end of your career, hopefully. We pay into it. Yep, that's one thing you get. What else?
Like freedoms.
You get freedoms like what?
Like the First Amendment.
You get, the government is not allowed to infringe on your right to speech. Totally. Bill of Rights, big, man. There's a lot of stuff in there. Guns, speech, religion, assembly, all protected. It's awesome. I dig it. I like the Bill of Rights. I hope it lasts. What else do we get?
A say in our own government.
The vote. Democracy. That's pretty big. That's a lot, right? That's a hell of a package they've put together for us. Equal protection under the law, right? If you get full citizenship, you're supposed to be treated equally, right? We all agree. Doesn't always happen, but you have that claim. If you're a first-class citizen and the cops treat you differently, you can at least go to court and be like, yo, that's illegal, right? And they do. That's a lot, man. That's a lot. Okay, here's what no one ever says. Here's what no one ever tells you. The immigrants, the gays, the women, the blacks, all the people who was the 5-year-olds, all the people who assimilated into this culture, the formal American culture, the good citizenship culture, lost something too, didn't they? I want to say they lost a lot of stuff. Now, it is totally up to you, it's up to them to decide if the cost-benefit ratio works out in their favor. Honestly, I mean this, okay? But what no one does is point out the losses in assimilation in citizenship for everybody, not just these people, for me, for everybody. The loss is cultural distinctiveness of any kind. You can't have an extended family. You will be frowned upon. Trust me. People get run out of neighborhoods if they have extended families of immigrants. It happens. It is routinely frowned upon. Can't have an extended family. You have to believe that work in itself is a good thing no matter what you get for it. What do immigrants think of work? Immigrants are sensible people, unlike Americans. What do immigrants think of work? What is work? Is it good in itself? Do immigrants come here to work because work is good? Do they work here no matter what they make? Hell no. They're sensible people, unlike us. Americans work no matter what, right? Because we think work in itself is good. Why do we think that? You should know this because you're in AP history class with Mr. Hodgins. Why do Americans think that work in itself, no matter what you get for it, is a good thing, virtuous and godly? These people called the Puritans, remember them? Back in the day? The OG Americans? They put that in our heads because they were all about this. The mind, repression to them was how you got to God. By working no matter what you get for it, right? That's a really good Christian. You know what I mean, right? By not having sex with anybody except your wife and only to have children, that's to be godly. To work all the time, that's to be godly. They said, and I'm telling you, we inherited all of that. They built the biggest, most powerful civilization in the history of the world, didn't they? They and their heirs, the Puritans. They did. That's indisputable. We have the biggest military. We're the wealthiest country in the history of the world. No doubt about that. That's an objective fact. They were also the most repressed people in the history of the world. There's no dispute about that either. Is that a coincidence? I suggest to you, Sigmund Freud suggests to you, that's not a coincidence, that repression builds incredibly big civilizations. But now I'm really nervous because Freud also said, as I told you, that a whole bunch of repression results in what? At the end of the day. And I'm actually worried that there will be the end of a day pretty soon, if you know what I mean. It produces people who look not like Donald Trump. It produces people who look a whole lot worse than Donald Trump. Donald Trump doesn't scare me because he's not like in a uniform. No one believes what he says. He has no respect whatsoever. The office of the presidency and its power has been permanently, hopefully damaged. The guy can't do anything, which is awesome. I'm worried about his successor. I'm worried about the next one with all those nuclear warheads and all the repression this society has been undergoing for hundreds of years. I think we see the return of the repressed in school shootings. I think we see the return of the repressed in a lot of what goes on in our culture. A lot of violence, a lot of acting out. The sexuality makes no sense whatsoever, does it? Is this culture puritanical or hedonistic when it comes to sex? Let's think about that for a second. Isn't that a weird one? Think about it, right? That's really complicated. Is American society puritanical about sex or hedonistic, right? Free for all. Go for it. Super sexual. Which is it? Right? When you think about it now, I bet you it's way more complicated.
Well, I think for men, it's like more puritanical, but for women, it's like puristic. Like women aren't supposed to have sex until marriage, but men, it's okay.
Sort of. Is it okay for me to be a slut? Is it okay for men to be sluts? Is that really? I think it's a myth. I think it's bullshit. It's not okay. Right? Are we, dudes? Come on. Do we actually congratulate each other? We don't. That doesn't happen. The locker room talk actually doesn't happen. You think it does? Do we actually do that? We slap each other on the back for our conquest. It actually doesn't happen. Very few men do that. I agree. There's double standards, but I'm just saying that Puritanism is across the board. Women, I totally agree, get hit harder. But what people don't understand is how it affects everyone. Look at what these guys are doing. Look what all the guys in this room are doing right now. They're sitting in chairs. They're not having sex. They're not doing anything bad at all, right? They're expected to do this. If any of these guys were having sex right now instead of this, what would society think of them? No bueno, right? They're going to juvie soon. So, yeah, it's puritanical on the one hand, but surely that's not what we're going to only say about this society and sex. Come on now. Have you ever looked at this thing called the internet? Have you ever watched this thing called television? Have you ever seen things called commercials? Have you ever driven by things called billboards? Have you ever looked at any advertising? Come on, guys. Hello, hello. You see flesh and sex and nakedness and all over the damn place. And my gosh, you can't turn on the television without people fornicating in front of you.
I think it's it's kind of like the nuclear family idea where the puritanical version is what is condoned, but what we see is kind of an effect of repression where it starts to leak out at the edges.
So that's a beautiful summation of the Freudian position on America's split personality, and it's the consequences of repression. That was beautifully put. Yeah, Freud would say the fact that Pornhub is one of the largest businesses in all of North America, that's, General Motors, Ford Motor, 20th Century Fox, bigger than those, okay? The fact of that, and that Pornhub, most of what's on there ain't just like, missionary position, you know what I'm saying? Vanilla, like most of it is really, really not okay, you know what I'm saying? So, and the fact that according to the owner of Pornhub, 180 million Americans every day access it. Right? That's what he said. And it's probably, I'm sure it's true. So in other words, that's every American who's old enough to use Pornhub, to use a computer, has used Pornhub at some point. Isn't that crazy? Basically everybody. But we don't talk about it. So that tells me, as a culture, we are way, 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 way puritanical and of the mind, and way, 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 way hedonistic and of the body at the exact same time, all the time. There's a civil war going on inside of you, which is this, at 6 o'clock in the morning and all day long after that. Right now, you want to do other things, don't you? And you're repressing those desires to stay here, even though you love me. Right? Those teachers that you really don't love, oh my God, the repression that goes on in those classes to stay there, right? The really boring ones, I've been there. I was you not long ago. Damn, that's some repression, right? Holding that shit in for an hour and 45 minutes. Good God almighty. When you got a video game at home, when you got Pornhub at home, when you got weed at home, when you got just a couch at home, when you got anything but this bullshit at home, waiting outside that window, oh my God, that takes repression. I've been there with you. I've been there. I know how hard it is, okay? It tells me that the civil war is raging inside of you and in our society, because look at these groups right here. Boom, 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 boom. Okay? The ones who have been associated with the body, look at those groups for a second. Just look at them. You guys know something or two about history in America. How have those groups been treated historically? And what has been the primary justification for that treatment? They're of the body. Black people are shiftless. They don't work hard. They think about sex too much. Women, they're too emotional. They're irrational. Gays, by definition, they have fun sex way too much. But we also know about gays and their bathhouses and their nightclubs and their discos. They invented all that shit. They're all about pleasure. Teenagers, maybe the worst of all. You're the ones who brought us jazz and rock and roll and disco and hip hop, you bastards. You've been threatening this civilization for 100 years, and it's about time you stand up for that. Do you understand me? No, that's what's been said, right? Teenagers. That's like a quote. John F. Kennedy and Barry Goldwater held Senate hearings in 1956 about rock and roll, and that's what they said. They said teenagers are bringing rock and roll into this country, and they're bringing down, this is a quote, bringing down American civilization with it. You guys, your age. Now hip-hop, my God. Hip-hop, what you listen to? Now? Like hip-hop now? Here's hip-hop now. I fuck that bitch. I fuck that bitch. I fuck that bitch. And, syrup. My son's 17. Am I making it up? Am I exaggerating? You know that's trap music, top to bottom, right? I'm like, hello, body people. Right? Does this argument make sense to you guys so far? Does American society look a little different now, or do you have a new lens to look at it with? That's what I'd like to give you. Just look at society now. I think you'll see it differently now. There's going to be people acting like this, and there's going to be people acting like this. Barack Obama, what did Barack Obama say about black men and pants? Their pants, do you know? You guys are too young, maybe. Do you remember what he said? He said this several times, very famous. He said this many times. He said, black men, you need to pull up your pants. Stop watching Sports Center. Stop eating Popeye's chicken. Go to school. Go to work. Like Michelle and I did. He said that over and over again in black churches to black people. He's a paragon of the mind and of discipline. And he understood that to move in this society from here to here and get all the good stuff and citizenship, the Bill of Rights and all that good stuff, you gotta put on the business suit. You gotta stop talking about sex. You gotta pull up your pants. Just like him. Who is more beautifully, perfectly, pristinely disciplined than Barack Obama? Seriously, right? He's perfect. He's the perfect American, is he not? And that's what he said about this. He's on their side entirely in this civil war. Okay, so look at those groups. So see what this country has done to them because of that, because they're of the body. Back to Socrates. He made that shit up. All of this. This idea about the mind and the body being separate and at odds, and the mind being good and the body being bad, he made that shit up entirely from his little head in 400 BC. He didn't prove a damn thing. He walked around under a tree talking to people all day. He couldn't prove it. There was no evidence. He just made this up. And all of Western civilization has been based on it. It's incredible. It's inside of you. It's why you're sitting here. So here's what I'm going to suggest to you. You have options. This is all just an idea. Like really, it's based in no science whatsoever. This is just an idea. But it's so central in the way that you live. We all think this way. Kim Kardashian, bad. Sally Ride, see her there? In the middle, up on the top. See Sally Ride on the top next to Oprah Winfrey and Ben and Jerry? See Sally Ride? You know who she was? She was the first female astronaut. She's always in school classrooms. Every time I'm in a school classroom, I see goddamn Sally Ride. Why? Why does she, you don't even know who she is, do you? She's on every women's history poster I've ever seen. Why? She was the first female astronaut. We love that shit. That is the mind all the way, right? They're scientists, they're pilots, they're rational as hell. They get to go. Kim Kardashian will never, ever be on a Women's History Month poster. Is she less important than Sally Ride? Is she less popular than Sally Ride? Is she less good than Sally Ride? So Socrates said, first of all, there's two parts to the soul. He made that up. So you can take an eraser to that if you want. Eastern religions, Eastern philosophies say just the opposite, that there's no difference. The mind and the body are all the same. It's a silly, arbitrary distinction that's phony and made up, used to oppress us, actually. So you can erase that. Okay, that division between the mind and the body, they're all the same. Okay? And then he also said, this is good, right? And this is bad. And everyone since then has agreed with him, at least in Western civilization, okay? He made moral claims about these things. The more you are of the mind, the more rational and disciplined you are, like Sally Ride or Oprah Winfrey, the better you are, right? And the more you're like Kim Kardashian, the worse you are. He made that up too. He might be right, but he made it up. Dude in the sandals 2,500 years ago, looking like a homeless person. So you can take an eraser to that too if you want. It's all neither good or bad. Your desires for sex is not bad. It's not any worse than your desire to work or to make money or anything else. You can do that's an option, just an option, okay? So it's all the same, it's all equal, whatever. It's not, nothing's bad or good. I like that option a lot. That's a totally good option. I like that one. You can stick with the original model if you want, by the way. I'm just giving you options, okay? Or you can do something radical that I do. I'm not saying you have to, but this is what I do. This is what I do in my book. This is my book. I just apply this to all of American history, and I started looking at these groups in American history, and I was like, oh shit, Black people, wait a minute. They gave us jazz and rock and roll and hip hop and slang and all kinds of just ways of being in the world that all of us use and value. There's something valuable there. They're not just bad, right? Maybe it's because they were of the body. Maybe being of the body is actually a good thing to me, according to my, because I like dancing and I like music. I like moving my body. I do. So I like them if they do that. If that's true, that they're of the body, then I like them. Immigrants, man. I just told you what I think about the extended family and the work ethic and all these things that the immigrants just don't even bother with. I like them too. I've always wanted to be a woman. Why? Because women have feelings and men don't. Men can't talk about feelings. We're a bunch of idiots when it comes to feelings. I like women in that way. I like it when they're of the body. Young people also gave us hip hop, rock and roll, jazz. As I told you, dancing, all the things I like. Movies, freedom, rebellion, used to be. Please rebel more. Gays. Totally hedonistic until they started getting married recently. All about the body and sexual freedom. They pioneered the second sexual revolution, which we'll cover later in this semester, I'm sure, in the 1970s with the Stonewall riots, etc. My heroes. I love them. Because they're of the body. Because they're of the body. I find people of the mind to be very useful. Seriously, I love them for building bridges and curing cancer. I do. But they tend to be sort of boring to me otherwise. I want them in their labs. I don't really want them making music or movies. Do you? So what I do is I don't just say all these things are artificial inventions and you don't have to pay attention to them, which is totally a great way to go, though, I think. I do something else. I actually just invert it. For me. I just look at this, I'm like, wait a minute. Actually, according to my values, what I like in the world, I like the people of the body better than the people of the mind. I'm not killing anybody. The people of the mind have a purpose in this society. I like my bridges and my smartphone. But the people I want to hang out with, the stuff that I love in American culture, the stuff that I enjoy, that I'd rather be doing than sitting in a classroom, was created by all those people of the body, the gays, the blacks, the women, the teenagers, the immigrants. Everything I like in this culture was created by them. So Socrates, I'm on the side of the body, brother. You can have the mind. Seriously. You have an option. You have multiple options now. You don't have to stick with this thing that was put inside of you at the age of 5 you didn't even know was there. Any questions? Did I help you? Is this interesting? Do you have a new lens to look at the world? Does it make sense? Is there something missing, the logic that you don't understand? I feel like there's some questions lurking. Whose side are you on? If someone says, that girl, she's a slut. That boy, he's lazy. Whose side are you on? The ones shaming them, or are you on their side? The ones who apparently are having more fun than you. Right? That's all that's going on. They're having more fun than you. You can decide to hate them, resent them, moralize against them, or something else. It's a tough call, right? Because some of those people are criminals too. Some of those people are bad. You can't just celebrate them all the time. But for me, the civil war between repression and freedom, I'm generally on the side of the freedom part. So if someone's being criticized by a moral guardian, by a politician or a teacher or a cop, I'm almost always on the side of the person who's in trouble, the kid rolling out of the classroom in algebra. Because they've actually created things that I love in this world. Not just because they're cool badasses, but they made all this stuff. Hollywood. Immigrants and blacks and gays created Hollywood. All of popular music, blacks, gays, Jews. I could go, video games, Jews, blacks, immigrants. I go on and on. Primarily, those body groups created all the stuff that we actually enjoy. My dad was an engineer, so he was really good at making roads and stuff. But the dude, our entire house was the color bland, beige. The entire house was beige. The car was beige. Everything had to be rational and utilitarian. There was no light fixtures. A light bulb was good enough. It gave off light. It doesn't need to be nice or pretty, right? That's rational thinking. He's of the mind. He was perfectly of the mind. He got things done. Nothing ever broke in our house. It also looked a lot like a prison. So.
Can I ask the question, where's that balance between the consequences of many of the body actions and not being too oppressive? So if I'm in health class and I'm saying, you have lots of sex, there are venereal diseases, you can get pregnant, and you may not have the means to take care. Am I being oppressive by mentioning those things?
No, that's just a practical question. It's like same with cars, automobiles, right? You guys just started driving probably, right? Same thing. So if you drive your car over the cliff, you're gonna die. Don't do that, okay? Drive the car though. You wanna drive the car, just don't drive it over the cliff or into other cars. Same with sex. Have sex, you can do it safely. We know all the ways to do it safely and for it to still be really fun. So it's just a practical question, right? Just like cars or anything else. If we lived in a country that had very little central authority and was chaotic, right? Had a very weak central power government, I wouldn't be speaking this tune, okay? I'd be saying something very different. I wouldn't be advocating doing your own thing and being free. Maybe I would, I don't know. But like if the riots in the street and chaos and people are breaking into the buildings and stuff, but we're so far from that. The mind is so powerful in this country. The Civil War still goes on, but the mind is basically the constant victor. They're always on top of us, I think. The consequences, are more freedom and maybe a little chaos along the way for everybody. What are you thinking? I'm dying to know. Other than get me out of this class, I want to go do something fun. Anything?
All right, so you said that in American society, like, we value the mind over the body. Like, is that correct?
Yes, don't you
All
think?
right. Yeah. Okay. So then my question is, how can someone who values body over mind, like, would you say that their chances of success are lower because in American society we value mind over body?
Awesome question. So is that, you guys answer this. Is your chance of success greater or lower if you are of the body? You're just all about sex and drinking and syrup, whatever it is, Is your chance of success greater or lower?
I think the way you think about things, if you're more of the body than of the mind, would be different, so that you wouldn't care as much of the things of the mind as other people would. But other people would probably ostracize you for it.
Yeah, so you're bifurcating society. There's other people and there's people. So let me give you guys another concept I think will be useful for you. Okay, so there's something I call formal American culture, which is the stuff that the politicians and the teachers and the business leaders say, and the newspapers, the media, the mainstream media says to us. That's what I call formal culture, right? And then there's popular culture, the stuff that just emerges from the bottom, just spontaneously, organically. It's the stuff that people actually want, right, to consume. Real Housewives, pop culture, right? No politician wants that to be the most popular TV show in the country, right? Yet it is. So Rihanna, music, everything that's pop culture, right? So in pop culture, the body rules, correct? Music, movies, pretty much, especially music, the body rules. You're gonna do great. All those rappers I was complaining about, are they poor? Nope. Okay, but in formal culture, if you want to be a professor or a teacher or a politician or an astronaut, if you want to be a formal American hero on the posters signed by the government, you better be of the mind all the way. All the way. Donald Trump proves what I'm saying here. Because what's Donald Trump? Which is he of? That dude's black, gay, immigrant, woman. He's a body guy. That's why they hate him so much. That's why actually they hate him so much. It's the opposite of what people have been saying about him. He's just like all those hated minorities. Think about it. He's ostentatious. He dresses up. He talks about sex all the time. He's lazy. He doesn't work hard. He's at Mar-a-Lago playing golf all the time, right? Oh my God, he's black and gay. The way they talk about him, the way they talk about Donald Trump is the way that Americans have talked about blacks and gays for hundreds of years. Seriously, think about that. He's of the body. That's why they hate him so much. I'll leave that with you. I hope I was useful. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.